The cheering died the moment Scales crossed the finish line. Dead last. Again, his claws scraped against the track's surface as he slowed to a stop, chest heaving, wings drooping low enough to brush the ground. The other dragons had finished 20 seconds ago. 20 whole seconds. In a race that lasted barely 2 minutes. He might as well have been flying backward. Pathetic, someone muttered from a stance. Scales pretended not to hear it. The Galactic Sports Academy attracted the best young athletes from every corner of known space. Insectoid jumpers who could launch themselves 50 feet straight up. Aquatic swimmers who moved through water like living torpedoes. And dragons. Lots of dragons. Big ones. Fast ones. Strong ones who could breathe fire hot enough to melt steel plating. Scales could barely manage a campfire's worth of flame, and his wings felt like they were made of wet cloth instead of the powerful membranes his species was famous for. Coach Talus, a towering avian with silver feathers and eyes that missed nothing, clicked his beak twice, the signal for everyone to hit the locker rooms. Scales kept his head down as he walked past the other competitors. He could feel their stares. Worse than the stares were the whispers. How did he even get accepted here? Must be some kind of charity case. I heard his family paid extra to get him in. None of it was true, but Scales had stopped correcting people weeks ago. What was the point? His performance spoke louder than any defense he could offer. The locker room smelled like sweat and steam. Scales found his section and started peeling off his training gear. His muscles ached, but not in the good way that meant he had pushed himself to new limits. They ached in the defeated way that came from trying your absolute hardest and still failing miserably. Hey, Scales. He looked up. Fong stood there, all gleaming crimson scales and muscles that bulged even when he was relaxed. The bigger dragon had won today's race by a comfortable margin, just like he won everything else. Yeah. Scales managed to keep his voice steady. I was thinking, Fong said, loud enough that other students stopped what they were doing to listen. Maybe you should transfer to the academic program. Focus on your strengths. Whatever those might be. A few students snickered. Scales felt his face grow hot, but he forced himself to meet Fong's eyes. I'm fine where I am. Are you, though? Fong gestured broadly. You finished last in every event. Every single one. You're dragging down the curve for the whole dragon division. It's embarrassing. For all of us. Leave him alone, Fong, said a smaller voice. One of the aquatic students, brave enough to speak up, but not brave enough to make eye contact with Fong afterward. Fong ignored the interruption. I'm serious, Scales. This isn't mean. This is honest. You don't belong here. Some people are athletes. Some people aren't. It's just genetics. Nothing personal. Scales grabbed his bag and pushed past Fong without responding. He could hear laughter following him out into the corridor. His claws clicked against the metal floor as he walked faster, then faster still, until he was nearly running toward the one place in the entire academy where nobody bothered him. The observation deck jutted out from the station's main ring, a transparent bubble that offered a view of the planet below. Earth, the humans' homeworld. Scales had chosen this academy partially because of its orbit around Earth, though he would never admit that to anyone. There is something calming about watching the blue and green world slowly rotate beneath him, but he pressed his snout against the cool glass and closed his eyes. Maybe Fong was right. Maybe he should quit, transfer to something he was actually good at. Except he couldn't think of anything he was good at. Running? No. Flying? Definitely not. Strength competitions? He had placed dead last in those two. Beautiful, isn't it? Scales jerked his head up. An old human stood a few feet away, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at Earth with a slight smile. Scales recognized him vaguely. One of the coaches. Raymond, maybe? He worked with some of the human students, though there weren't many of those. Humans were one of the newer species in the galactic community, and they didn't have the natural physical advantages that other species did. Yeah, Scales said quietly, hoping the human would take the hint and leave him alone. Raymond didn't leave. Instead, he moved closer to the glass, still looking down at Earth. You know what the gravity is down there? About 10 meters per second squared. Stronger than most habitable worlds. Scales didn't respond. He didn't care about gravity right now. Humans evolved in that gravity, Raymond continued. Made us short, Dense bones, thick muscles just to move our own bodies around. We were never going to be the fastest runners in the galaxy. Never going to be the strongest. Our reflexes are decent, but nothing special. Okay, Scales said, still not understanding why this human was telling him this. Raymond finally turned to look at him. The old man had wrinkles around his eyes and gray in his hair, but his gaze was sharp. I watched your race today. Great. Just what Scales needed. Another witness to his humiliation. You were trying hard, Raymond said. I could see that. Maximum effort. Heart rate probably through the roof. Gave it everything you had. Scales nodded miserably. Want to know what I saw wrong? I'm weak, Scales said flatly. I'm slow. I'm a genetic disappointment to my entire species. Pick whichever reason you want. Raymond smiled. It wasn't a mocking smile. It was something else. Something that looked almost like recognition. No, what I saw was a dragon racing like a dragon. And that's your whole problem right there. Scales blinked at the old human. What does that even mean? I'm a dragon. Of course I race like a dragon. Raymond moved away from the observation window and sat down on one of the benches that lined the deck. He patted the space beside him. After a moment of hesitation, Scales settled onto the bench, tucking his tail around his feet. When I was young, Raymond began, I ran track. Sprint events mostly. 100 meters, 200 meters. I was the smallest guy on my team by a lot. Everyone else had longer legs, bigger lungs, more natural speed. I finished last in my first 20 races. 20. Scales looked at the human with new interest. Really? Really? My coach was this ex-military guy who believed in toughness and hard work. He kept telling me to push harder, run faster, give more effort. So I did. I trained twice as long as everyone else. Ran until I threw up. Pushed myself until my legs felt like rubber. And you know what happened? You got faster. I got injured, Raymond said with a dry laugh. Pulled both hamstrings, developed stress fractures in my feet, and still finished last in every race. Because I was doing exactly what you're doing. Trying to beat natural athletes at their own game using their methods. The observation deck was quiet except for the faint hum of the station's life support systems. Scales watched Earth rotate slowly below them, processing what Raymond was saying. Then I got a new coach, Raymond continued. Old woman named Patricia. First thing she did was make me stop running for 2 weeks. Just stop completely. I thought she was crazy. Then she sat me down with videos of every race I had ever run. Made me watch them over and over. Know what she showed me? Scales shook his head. I was wasting energy everywhere. My arms swung too wide. My foot placement was inefficient. I was breathing wrong, landing wrong, even thinking wrong. Patricia taught me something nobody else had bothered to explain. Humans aren't built to be the fastest, so we had to get smart about it. We studied biomechanics, angles, leverage, energy systems. We turned running into a science instead of just an athletic event. Did it work? Scales asked. Raymond's smile widened. I made the Olympics. Never won gold, but I got there. Beat people who were naturally faster than me by being more efficient, by understanding the mechanics of movement better than they did, by racing smart instead of racing hard. Scales felt something stir in his chest. Not quite hope, but something close to it. You think I could do that? Race smart. I think you're in the perfect position to do exactly that, Raymond said. You're not strong enough to rely on power, not fast enough to rely on speed. So you have no choice but to get clever. That's where humans have always thrived. We're weak, so we got smart. That's our whole thing. But I'm not human. No, but I am. And I've been studying dragon physiology for 3 years now, waiting for the right student. Someone who was struggling enough to actually listen instead of just coasting on natural talent. Scales turned to face Raymond fully. You want to train me? Using human methods? If you're willing to learn. It won't be easy. You'll have to forget everything you think you know about racing. Stop trying to be like Fong and the other dragons. Start using that brain of yours. Everyone will think it's stupid, Scales said quietly. A human training a dragon. They already mock me enough. Raymond stood up and stretched his back with an audible crack. Let them mock. I've been mocked my whole life for being a weak little human in a galaxy full of bigger, stronger species. Doesn't change the fact that human training methods work. We've proven it over and over. Scales thought about Fong's words in the locker room, about the laughter, about finishing last in every single event. What did he have to lose? His pride was already gone. Okay, he said, I'll do it. Teach me how humans train. Good. We start tomorrow, 5 in the morning, before anyone else is awake. I don't want the other students distracting you while you're learning the basics. 5 in the morning sounded terrible, but Scales nodded anyway. Raymond started walking toward the exit, then paused and looked back. One more thing, Scales. In 3 months, there's a major academy competition. All the top students compete. If you're serious about this, I want you to challenge Fong publicly. Make it official. Scales felt his stomach drop. Challenge him? To what? Any event he chooses. Let him pick his best competition. Then we'll beat him at it using human methods. That's insane. He'll destroy me. Probably, Raymond agreed cheerfully. If we only had a few weeks. But we have 3 months. And I've seen Fong race. He's all power and no technique. Sloppy form. Wastes energy like crazy. Relies completely on being naturally better than everyone else. That's his weakness. How is being naturally better a weakness? Because he's never had to think about what he's doing. Never had to study his own movements or optimize his performance. He just shows up and wins because he's big and fast. But you're going to learn every tiny detail of movement efficiency. By the time we're done, you'll know more about racing than Fong has ever forgotten. Scales wanted to believe it. Wanted to believe that there was some secret knowledge that could make up for his physical disadvantages. But 3 months seemed impossibly short to bridge the gap between him and Fong. Raymond must have seen the doubt on his face. Trust me, kid. Humans spent 10,000 years being the weakest species on Earth. We survived by being smarter than everything that wanted to eat us. That knowledge doesn't just disappear because we made it to space. Now, get some sleep. Tomorrow, we start teaching you how to think like a human athlete. Scales arrived at the training facility at exactly 5 in the morning. The lights were still dim, set to night mode, and his claws echoed in the empty space. Raymond was already there, wearing simple exercise clothes and holding a data pad. Good. You showed up, Raymond said. A lot of students say they want to improve, but half of them don't actually commit. First lesson right there. Showing up is half the battle. What's the other half? Scales asked, paying attention. Come here. Raymond pulled up a video on his datapad. It showed Scales running his race from yesterday. Scales winced, already knowing how badly it ended. Watch your left wing, Raymond said, replaying the first few seconds. See that? You're dropping it too low on the downstroke. Wastes energy and creates drag. Now watch your back legs. You're overextending. Reaching too far forward. It feels like you're getting more distance, but you're actually slowing yourself down because you have to brake with each step before pushing off again. Scales had never thought about any of this. Running was just something you did. You moved your legs and wings as fast as possible and hoped for the best. Raymond spent the next hour pointing out dozens of small problems. The angle of his head, the timing of his wing beats, the way he leaned too far forward on turns. Each mistake seemed tiny by itself, but they added up to massive energy waste. So what do I do? Scales asked, feeling overwhelmed. We rebuild your movement patterns from scratch. Slowly. Today we're not running at all. We're just walking. Walking. Raymond nodded. If you can't walk efficiently, you'll never run efficiently. So we start with the absolute basics. Follow me. For the next 2 hours, Scales walked up and down the track while Raymond watched and corrected. Step placement, weight distribution, wing position. It felt ridiculous. Here he was, a dragon who should be flying and breathing fire, learning how to walk properly from human who barely came up to his shoulder. But Raymond's corrections made sense. When Scales adjusted his posture the way the old coach instructed, his muscles didn't tire as quickly. When he placed his feet more carefully, his movement felt smoother. Good, Raymond said after the 100th lap. You're starting to feel it. That's proprioception, body awareness. Most athletes never develop it because they don't need to. They're strong enough to succeed with sloppy form. You're not, so you get to learn the right way. Other students started arriving for morning training. Scales saw them staring, pointing. A few laughed openly. There was Scales, walking slowly around the track like a hatchling learning to move for the first time. Fong showed up with his usual group of friends. He took one look at Scales and Raymond and burst out laughing. "This is your big training plan? Walking? And you've got a human coaching you? Oh, this is too good." Scales felt his face burn, but Raymond put a hand on his arm. "Ignore them. They don't understand yet. They will, though, when," Scales muttered, "when you start beating them." Training continued every morning. Walking became jogging. Jogging became running. But it was different from before. Raymond filmed everything, analyzed every movement, made constant tiny adjustments. He introduced concepts that Scales had never heard of. Interval training, heart rate zones, lactic acid thresholds, recovery periods. Humans had to learn all this because we were hunting animals faster than us, Raymond explained one morning. We couldn't outrun a deer in a sprint, so we learned persistence hunting. We would chase prey for hours, days even, until they collapsed from exhaustion. We learned to manage our energy, pace ourselves, understand our body's limits, and how to push them intelligently. The other students continued to mock, but Scales noticed something changing. His times were improving, not dramatically, but consistently. He went from finishing last by 30 seconds to finishing last by 20 seconds. Then 15. Then 10.1 morning. During a practice sprint, Scales finished ahead of 3 other competitors. Not dragons, but still. Actual living beings who he had beaten in a race. The facility went quiet for a moment as everyone processed what had happened. Raymond just smiled and made a note on his data pad. "Good. Your wing-leg coordination is finally syncing up properly. Let's work on your breathing next." Fong stopped finding it funny around week 5. He started watching Scales train with narrowed eyes, and his comments got sharper, meaner. "You think learning human tricks is going to make you a real athlete? You're still weak. You're still slow. A few lucky wins against bottom-tier competitors don't mean anything." Scales didn't respond. He was too busy learning. Raymond had introduced mental training now. Visualization exercises where Scales would imagine running the perfect race over and over. Meditation to control his heart rate and stay calm under pressure. Competition analysis where they studied videos of Fong and other top dragons, identifying patterns and weaknesses. "Look at this," Raymond said, freezing a frame of Fong crossing a finish line. "See how he's celebrating before he's actually stopped? That means he's not thinking about efficiency at the end. He's thinking about winning. That split second of distraction costs him speed. But he still wins," Scales pointed out, "because everyone else makes the same mistake. But you won't. You're going to race clean from start to finish. No wasted motion. No mental lapses. Pure exécuté de technique." By week 8, Scales had beaten half the academy in practice races. The mocking had stopped. Now, people watched his training with curiosity instead of contempt. A few younger students even asked Raymond if he would coach them too. "See," Raymond said, "people respect results. Keep showing them what human methods can do." Week 10 brought a breakthrough that changed everything. The academy held weekly ranking races, informal competitions that determined training group placements. Scales had been steadily climbing from the bottom tier, but he was still grouped with the slower athletes. Today's race would determine if he could move up to the intermediate level. Scales lined up at the starting blocks. His heart hammered in his chest, but he controlled his breathing exactly like Raymond had taught him. 4 counts in, hold for 2, 6 counts out. His muscles relaxed slightly, even though adrenaline flooded his system. The starting signal blared. Scales exploded forward, his legs driving at precisely the angle Raymond had drilled into him for 2 months straight. His wings caught air on the 3rd stride, timed perfectly with his leg movements instead of fighting against them. He didn't think about the other racers. He didn't think about winning or losing. He just executed the technique. 50 meters in, he was middle of the pack. Not bad, but not impressive either. His old instinct screamed at him to push harder, go faster, use everything he had. But Raymond's voice echoed in his head. "Save energy. Trust the efficiency. Let the others burn out." 75 meters. One of the larger dragons ahead of him started to slow. His form was falling apart, wings and legs out of sync. Scales passed him smoothly, maintaining his rhythm 0.90 meters. Another competitor faded. Scales could see the finish line now. Two dragons still ahead. He activated the final burst technique Raymond had taught him, a specific sequence of wing beats that provided maximum thrust with minimum energy cost, that he crossed the line in third place. Out of 12 competitors, he had finished third. Scales coasted to a stop, barely winded, and looked over at Raymond. The old human stood at the sideline with his arms crossed, but there was a proud smile on his face. The other racers were gasping for air, wings drooping. Some of them collapsed on the track. Scales felt like he could run the whole thing again right now. That was the real victory. Not just placing third, but finishing with energy to spare. "How did you do that?" one of the other dragons asked, still trying to catch his breath. "You were barely trying at the end." "Human training methods," Scales said simply. Word spread fast. By lunchtime, everyone in the academy knew that Scales had placed in the top 3. Students who had ignored him for months suddenly wanted to know about his training. What was Raymond teaching him? Could they learn too? Director Tallis called Scales to his office that afternoon. The avian administrator gestured to a chair with one wing. "Seat. We need to discuss your progress." Scales sat, trying to read Tallis's expression. Was he in trouble? "Coach Raymond submitted a proposal this morning," Tallis said. "He wants to incorporate human training methodology into our standard curriculum. Analysis-based technique refinement, energy management systems, mental conditioning protocols. He believes these methods could benefit all our students." "Oh," Scales said, not sure what response was expected. "I'm going to approve it," Tallis continued. "But I want to see a demonstration first. Something public that proves these methods work at the highest level." Raymond suggested you challenge Fong to a formal competition at the end-of-term exhibition. Scales felt his stomach drop. This was the moment Raymond had mentioned 3 months ago, but hearing it officially from the director made it terrifyingly real. "Fong can choose the event," Tallis said. "Whatever competition he feels most confident in. If you win, or even just give him serious competition, I'll authorize Raymond to train anyone who wants to learn. If you lose badly, well..." Tallis ruffled his feathers. "We'll know these methods have limits." "I understand," Scales managed to say. That evening, Scales found Raymond in the human coach's small office. The old man was reviewing training footage as usual, his desk covered in data pads and holographic displays showing movement analysis. "Tallis wants me to challenge Fong," Scales said. Raymond nodded. "I know. I suggested it. You're ready. I placed third in one race against mid-level students. Fong is the best dragon athlete in the academy. Maybe the best in this whole sector." "He is," Raymond agreed. "Naturally gifted, strong, fast, aggressive competitor. He's got every physical advantage over you. So how am I supposed to beat him?" Raymond pulled up a video compilation. It showed Fong winning race after race, but Raymond had marked specific moments with red indicators. "Watch his technique. Really watch it. He's sloppy, relies completely on power to overcome inefficiency. He's never had to refine his form because he's always been strong enough to win anyway. That's his weakness. His weakness is being really, really good at winning." Scales said doubtfully. "His weakness is that he's never trained smart because he's never had to. You spent 3 months learning efficiency at a level he can't even imagine. When you race, you think about every movement. He just runs fast and hopes his natural talent carries him through. And it has so far." Raymond closed the video and looked at Scales directly. "Here's what humans learned from thousands of years of being weak. Natural talent has a ceiling. Training breaks through that ceiling. Fong hit his ceiling a long time ago and doesn't even know it because nobody has pushed him. You're going to push him." The formal challenge happened the next day in the main cafeteria. Scales found Fong sitting with his usual group and walked over. His legs felt shaky, but he kept his voice steady. "I challenge you to a competition at the end-of-term exhibition. You pick the event." Fong looked up, surprised and amused. "You're serious? You want to race me? Any event you choose." The cafeteria had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now. Fong stood up slowly, clearly enjoying the attention. "Okay, sure. Let's make it interesting. The triathlon, flight sprint, strength challenge, and precision course." 3 events combined. That way I can beat you at everything instead of just one thing. Scales swallowed hard. The triathlon was the hardest competition in the academy, but he extended his claw anyway. Deal. They shook on it, and the cafeteria erupted in excited chatter. The final 2 weeks before the exhibition felt like they lasted both forever and no time at all. Raymond restructured Scales' entire training schedule around the triathlon's 3 events: flight sprint, strength challenge, precision course. Each one demanded different skills, and Fong excelled at all of them. "We can't beat him at pure strength," Raymond said during one planning session. "He's going to lift heavier weights than you no matter what we do. But we can be smarter about how you lift. Leverage, timing, technique. Same with the flight sprint. He's faster in a straight line, but we can make you more efficient. And the precision course." Raymond smiled. "That's where we have the best shot. Precision rewards patience and control, not raw power." Every morning started with visualization. Scales would close his eyes and run through the entire competition mentally, imagining each movement perfectly executed. Then came physical training. Raymond broke down each event into components and drilled them endlessly. The angle of wing entry during the sprint, the grip position for the strength weights, the breathing pattern for the precision course. Other students watched the training with mixed reactions. Some were skeptical, still convinced that Fong would win easily. Others were curious, especially after seeing how much Scales had improved. A few even asked Raymond for advice on their own technique. Fong, meanwhile, trained the way he always had: hard and aggressive. Scales saw him in the facility regularly, pushing massive weights and running sprints at maximum speed. He looked unstoppable. Scales tried not to think about the size difference, the strength difference, the natural talent difference. "Stop comparing yourself to him," Raymond said, noticing Scales' distraction. "You're not trying to become Fong. You're trying to become the best version of yourself. That's all you can control." The night before the exhibition, Scales couldn't sleep. He kept running through scenarios in his head. What if he froze up? What if all the training didn't matter? What if Fong was just too good? He found himself back at the observation deck, staring down at Earth. Raymond found him there, just like he had 3 months ago. "Can't sleep either?" the old coach asked, settling onto the bench. "I'm nervous," Scales admitted. "Good. Means you care. But remember what we've practiced. Nerves are just energy. You can let them scatter your focus, or you can channel them into performance." Raymond looked out at his homeworld. "You know what humans were most afraid of back when we were still figuring out how to survive on that planet?" Scales shook his head. "Everything. We were afraid of predators that could kill us easily. Afraid of starvation. Afraid of other human tribes. Afraid of the dark and the cold and the things we didn't understand. We were scared all the time because we were weak and the world was dangerous. How did you handle it?" "We got clever. We made tools. We worked together. We studied our enemies and found their weaknesses. And we learned that being afraid doesn't mean being helpless. It just means you have to think instead of relying on instinct." Raymond stood up. "Tomorrow you're going to be afraid. Fong is going to look big and strong and intimidating. Let him. While he's relying on his natural gifts, you'll be executing a strategy he doesn't even know exists. Get some rest. Tomorrow we show the galaxy what human training methods can do." The exhibition day arrived. The main arena was packed with students, faculty, and even some visiting officials from other academies. Scales had never seen so many beings in one place. His legs felt weak as he walked out onto the competition floor. Fong was already there, looking confident and relaxed. He saw Scales and grinned. "Ready to embarrass yourself in front of everyone?" Scales didn't answer. He was focusing on his breathing. "For counts in. Hold for 2. 6 counts out." Director Tallis flew to the center of the arena. "Welcome to the end-of-term exhibition. Today we have a special challenge match. Scales versus Fong in the triathlon. First event is the flight sprint. 1 kilometer straight course. Competitors ready." They moved to the starting line. Scales could hear his heart pounding, but his mind was calm. He knew exactly what he needed to do. Execute the technique. Trust the training. The starting signal sounded. Fong launched himself forward with massive wing beats that created visible air turbulence. He pulled ahead immediately his natural power giving him an early lead. The crowd roared. Scales stayed focused on his own race. Efficient wing strokes, minimal drag, controlled breathing. He wasn't trying to catch Fong in the first 100 meters. That would waste energy. Instead, he maintained perfect form, letting Fong burn his reserves on the aggressive start to tee the halfway point. Fong was 15 meters ahead. Scales could see the bigger dragon's wing beats starting to lose coordination. He was getting tired. Scales, meanwhile, still had plenty of energy left. 700 meters. Fong's lead was down at 10 meters. His form was deteriorating, wings dipping unevenly, legs struggling to maintain rhythm. 850 meters. 5 meters. Scales activated his finishing sequence, the pattern Raymond had designed specifically for the final sprint. Perfectly timed wing beats that maximized thrust. 900 meters. Scales pulled even with Fong. The bigger dragon's eyes went wide with shock. He tried to push harder, but his exhausted muscles couldn't respond. They crossed the finish line within a wing length of each other. Fong by the narrowest margin. But Scales had forced him to work harder than he ever had before, and there were still 2 events left. Fong stumbled to a stop, gasping for air, wings trembling. Scales landed smoothly, his breathing elevated but controlled. The arena had gone absolutely silent. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds before the crowd erupted. Students were on their feet, shouting and pointing. Nobody had expected Scales to push Fong that hard. The massive dragon who had dominated every competition for 2 years had nearly lost the opening event. Director Tallis called for order. Next event, Strength Challenge. Competitors will lift progressively heavier weights. Failure to complete a lift means elimination. This was Fong's strongest event. He had set academy records here. Scales knew he couldn't match Fong's raw power, but Raymond had taught him something important about the strength challenge. It wasn't just about muscles. It was about leverage, grip, and technique. The first few weights were easy for both of them, standard lifts that any dragon could manage. But as the weights increased, the difference in their natural strength became obvious. Fong was lifting with pure muscle, hoisting the weights overhead with brute force. It looked impressive. The crowd cheered each successful lift. Scales used the technique Raymond had drilled into him. Proper foot placement to create a stable base. Grip position that maximized mechanical advantage. Smooth, controlled movements instead of explosive jerks. He lifted the same weights as Fong, but he made it look effortless. They reached the weight class where most dragons failed. Fong approached the bar with confidence, gripped it, and hauled it up with a roar of effort. His arms shook, his wings spread for balance, but he got it overhead. The crowd went wild. Scales stepped up. This weight was at the absolute limit of what his body could handle, maybe beyond it. But Raymond had shown him videos of human powerlifters moving weights that seemed impossible for their size, all because they understood the biomechanics perfectly. That he gripped the bar exactly where Raymond had marked during practice. Set his feet, took 3 deep breaths. Then he lifted, not with a burst of power like Fong, but with smooth, sustained pressure. His legs drove upward, his back stayed straight, his core stayed tight. The weight rose inch by inch until his arms locked out overhead. He held it for the required 3 seconds, then lowered it with control. No wasted energy. No unnecessary strain. They were tied. But Scales could see something important. Fong was breathing hard, his muscles quivering from effort. Scales felt tired but not destroyed. Efficient technique had saved his strength. The next weight was added. Fong stepped up, clearly determined to end this. He gripped the bar, set himself, and pulled. The weight came up halfway, then stalled. He roared with effort, veins standing out on his neck, wings beating to generate momentum. The weight rose another inch, 2 inches. Then his grip failed and the weight crashed down. The crowd gasped. Fong had failed a lift. For the first time in Academy history, Scales approached the same weight. It was beyond his natural strength. He knew that. But Raymond's voice echoed in his mind. Humans beat stronger opponents by being smarter. Trust the technique. He set his grip, found his stance, visualized the perfect lift he had practiced 1,000 times in training. Then he executed, legs driving, back tight, arms pulling. The weight moved. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, but it moved. Up past his knees, past his waist, past his chest. His arms locked out, overhead 0.3 seconds. He held it for 3 seconds while the arena sat in stunned silence. Then he set it down, and the crowd absolutely exploded. Students were screaming. Faculty members were on their feet. Even Director Tallis looked shocked. Fong stared at Scales with an expression that mixed disbelief, anger, and something that might have been respect. 1 event each. The precision course would decide everything. The precision course was a complex path of floating rings, narrow beams, and tight turns. Competitors had to fly through it as fast as possible without touching any obstacles. Speed mattered, but accuracy mattered more. A single collision meant disqualification. Fong went first. He attacked the course with the same aggressive power he brought to everything. Fast, direct, using his strength to force his way through tight spaces. He made it through clean, his time displayed on the board. 48 seconds. Excellent. Scales stood at the starting line. His wings felt heavy. His muscles ached from the strength event. But his mind was clear. This was what Raymond had prepared him for. Precision. Control. Patience. The signal sounded. Scales entered the course at a moderate speed. Not rushing. Not forcing. He approached each ring with perfect positioning, adjusting his angle with tiny wing corrections. Through the first ring, the second, the third, his movements looked effortless because they were efficient. Halfway through, he was on pace to match Fong's time. But Scales wasn't thinking about the clock. He was thinking about each individual obstacle, each decision, each adjustment, the way Raymond had taught him. The final section was the hardest. 3 rings in rapid succession, each offset at different angles. Fong had muscled through them with speed. Scales approached them with precision. Wing beat, adjust, wing beat, adjust. Through the first, through the second, through the third. He crossed the finish line and looked at the timer. 47.3 seconds. He had won by less than a second, but he had won clean. The crowd went absolutely insane. Students rushed onto the course. Faculty members were shouting. Director Tallis was conferring with other officials, probably trying to process what had just happened. Fong landed beside Scales. For a long moment, the bigger dragon just stared at him. Then, slowly, he extended his claw. How did you do that? Scales shook his claw. Human training methods. Efficiency over power. Technique over talent. I learned from someone who spent his whole life being weaker than everyone else and had to get smart to survive. Raymond pushed through the crowd. He didn't say anything, just smiled and put a hand on Scales' shoulder. Director Tallis made the official announcement. Winner of the exhibition challenge, Scales. Effective immediately, human training methodology will be integrated into our curriculum. Any student who wishes to learn these techniques may do so. Later that night, Scales found Raymond back at the observation deck. Earth rotated peacefully below them. You did good today, Raymond said. Prove that natural talent isn't everything. Prove that being weak just means you have to be smart. I'm still not the strongest, Scales said. Or the fastest. No, but you're the most efficient. You understand movement better than any dragon in this academy. That's worth more than raw power. Raymond smiled. Humans have been teaching the galaxy that lesson for decades now. We're not the biggest or the toughest or the most naturally gifted, but we think, we analyze, we optimize, and we never give up. That's our strength. Scales looked down at Earth, the planet that had produced beings like Raymond. Weak by galactic standards, but smart enough to thrive anyway. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for being willing to learn, Raymond replied. Now go get some rest. Tomorrow we start teaching everyone else.